Who
No,
knows? But
probably not. And it looks like the most county jails, the funding comes from property taxes, and it also comes from state and federal funding. So, you know, it's at the end of the day, crime is one of those things where there's always the question of the funding to deal with people who already committed crime, and also the prevention of crime. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
So I think you're always going to have crime in society. You're always going to have people who do certain things. But
mhm,
I tend to think that if you could help people to avoid crime, you know what I'm saying? I think that would be part of not needing so much prison staff. But that's a whole nother thing in America, and a whole nother episode we'll have to do on that one too, because you know trying to prevent people from committing crime, and recidivism rate is high in for
yeah,
jail.
absolutely.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's like I don't know if that's going to be solved, because with 60% staffing, obviously there's an issue there. You know,
I mean, that's a huge issue. That's
yeah,
a pretty big issue. And like I said, I think for any sheriff, that's going to be a problem. So I, I, I mean, I don't. I feel like it probably would be in her best interest to resign because at this type of event, the buck stops at the top,
yeah,
stops with the sheriff. And
yeah.
so when something like this happens, someone's going to have to really to take the fall, and it's going to come. You know, sheriff's going to have to resign
Well, what
behind
she's
this.
probably going to have to do, in my opinion, here's the thing. I see that point, but I also feel like at the end of the day, it's like it's not personally her fault, but that's her responsibility. But
Stability.
what they can do is they can make sure that they get clear as to why this happened and who was responsible.
Hmm.
So the maintenance worker, obviously, and then people outside of the jail, like the two women, you can't control them, but the actual
Yeah.
correctional officers who
Hmm.
were either in on it or wasn't on
Like
duty, you're gonna have to come down.
exactly. What was the breakdown in the process there? These failures that occurred, like obviously there was a laziness there in people, or what they call it, dereliction of duty.
Right.
Clearly that's been happening for a while. It didn't just happen on this day.
Yeah.
So I do agree that the sheriff, the onus falls on her
Hmm.
for this dereliction of duty that's obviously been happening for quite some time. Who's been checking on, are these procedures, is jail procedure being followed?
That's a
Who is
fact too.
checking up on that? Even if, okay, I understand the whole being understaffed, right? But there still needs to be oversight,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, especially knowing, keeping in mind, okay, this jail is overcrowded and understaffed.
Hmm.
So to me, that obviously means that there are rules that are probably not being followed.
Hmm.
There is, procedures that are being overlooked. There's probably some, you know, so at a certain point, staff becomes apathetic. They don't
Hmm.
care. It's like
Right.
whatever, you know. And then you have to
Right.
look at, well, how much are they getting paid too? If they feel like they're overworked, understaffed, and underpaid, they really don't give a shit. So, you know, they probably feel like, well, you know what? I can't control this whole jail. I'm only going to do the little bit that I can do. So at that point, oversight is really, really important.
That's a good point.
Checking, whether you're checking on things once a week, every 2 weeks, at some point,
Just to make sure these things are being done.
or to put something in place to say, okay, obviously, if we're understaffed, right? Then what do we need to do to kind of fill in the gap? Because X, Y, and Z is happening because we don't have enough people. What are you doing to fill in that gap?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
How do you not notice over an extended period of time that rules are not being followed? People are
Hmm.
not doing their job. So,
Hmm.
and it might not be her direct responsibility. People, deputy sheriff or
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
senior
It's a chain of
leadership,
command.
the chain of command, senior leadership within the jail. People are not doing oversight to
Yeah.
see, okay, is guard X at his station, at his post every
Yeah.
day?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or what's happening within this facility? So
Yeah.
oversight was clearly not happening. And
Right.
again,
Yeah.
the buck stops at the top with the
No,
sheriff.
you're right.
So
You're absolutely right. And looking at it from that lens, you're right. They probably will ask her to resign because even if you say, okay, these particular deputies weren't doing what they're supposed to do, yeah, the question will be like, okay, well, where was the oversight to make sure that they were doing that? Because, like you said, this is probably not the first time. So,
exactly,
at
like
the end of the day, you're right.
how long has it taken, right, for you to notice? You
Yeah.
mean to say this is the first time you noticed that people were going to get food when they're supposed to
And
be doing
nobody's guarding that pod. Nobody is
right,
guarding that pod at the time. So
right,
you're absolutely right. And also to that point, like you said, we don't know how long everything was planned, but you have to assume that these inmates said, okay, I noticed that they're lacking, and I see how they're lacking, and this is how we can take advantage of it to get out of here. Because it probably was not
absolutely.
a spur of the moment thing, right?
No,
So you
no,
know,
no. Who gets out spur of the moment? The only
yeah,
time
nothing.
the only time I've ever seen stuff like that happen is when, like, during a jail transport or
Right,
something,
right,
when
something like that.
one
Yeah,
guy one guy who planned to escape gets loose, and other people decide to
yeah,
run because it's like, ooh, it's an opportunity.
it's an
This guy
opportunity.
did all the work for him, right?
Right.
It's a crime of opportunity.
Yeah.
That happens, but that doesn't even happen that often.
No,
You
barely
know,
ever happens. It's like
Rarely
movie.
ever
You know what I'm
happens.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some documentaries about it. When one guy escaped, he's tussling with the guard in the
Yeah.
van, and
Right.
he happens to get his chain free. He's chained
Right.
to other inmates, and once he breaks himself free, now the rest of the guys like, oh well, shit.
Yeah.
They start
I'm gonna try
running.
to get out too. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, he didn't flip the van over. Let me get up out of here.
Yeah. But
So
yeah, it's like now
that's
now
true.
people learn, police learn all these things from things that happened in the past. So anytime something happens, they're like, okay. So that's why I think this case is going to be interesting because it's not a lack of it's not a in my opinion it's not something that's lacking in the physical prison itself, like, oh, they should have built the wall better or this and this and that.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of oversight at the end of the day. And
absolutely.
anytime you don't have that oversight, but we gonna see what's up. We gonna see what's up. In
Yeah,
this case, as of the time we're recording this, it's 5 prisoners still free. um it's gonna be interesting. I think at the end of the day, we have to take a look at the fact that, yes, when something's understaffed, oversight has to be even better. And yeah,
absolutely.
so
Absolutely. Oversight has to be a little bit tighter. If you
yeah,
don't have the people to do stuff, and I guess that would be my perspective on what justice looks like in this situation.
yeah,
Is the sheriff is going to need to step down. Ultimately, the buck stops with
yeah,
her and her failure to ensure that oversight was happening.
right,
And ultimately, that is her responsibility. Even if you're
100%,
not the one directly doing it, you need to make sure that it's being done. And you're the one
100%.
that's going to always need to be aware that, okay, I'm responsible for this jail. I know this
Hmm.
jail is understaffed, and who's I need to make sure that the people I put in place, or the people that are in place, that I'm, because you're the top person, so
Right,
you're everybody's boss. So let me make sure that so and so, are they doing the oversight that I want them to do, and it's her responsibility to come up with the plans for oversight. If you
Mm-hmm.
know that, okay, this is understaffed, underfunded, this is now a dangerous situation. I'm
Mm-hmm.
responsible not only for the safety of the guards, but of the inmates and now the people around them. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a pretty big failure. So, in this case, I feel like my perspective on justice is that sheriff gonna need to step down.
Mm-hmm.
I think several other people under her are going to need to lose their jobs as well because she wasn't the only person who was derelict in duty. You know, there
Yeah.
was a lot. I think there's quite a few people in that chain of command who just weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. There was just a culture of apathy, I think,
Right.
and anybody who was involved in the escape and in helping them, whether it was beforehand or after the fact, um, they need to be charged as well. And you
Yeah.
know, you do the crime, you do the time.
Yep.
Especially you helping out murderers and rapists and all this and that.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
we're gonna see what's up because at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. I mean, the actual oversight and the protocols in and of themselves, I think that I agree with you. My perspective is the same as far as the sheriff, and I think that ultimately they're gonna make sure they don't get caught with their pants down anymore because as soon as you're not following protocols, that's when stuff like this happens. And if you're not
right.
following them long enough, prisoners
Mhm.
are paying attention. That's what it comes down
Oh,
to.
absolutely,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean? So
I
that's what
feel
it
like
is.
from the moment they enter the facility, they're looking for cracks. They're looking
Yeah,
for
especially if
opportunities.
if you're facing long time. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Oh
if
yeah,
if you have a 5 year sentence or a 2 year sentence and you're trying to escape, you're an idiot. But
yeah,
you know,
pretty much,
you're just an idiot, and
pretty much.
you deserve what you're going to get. But if you have a long sentence, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, life, you're going to be looking for
Oh
opportunity. You got nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
especially if you're in a metropolitan area. It's way easier to escape in
yeah,
an area like that than if
right,
you were taken to someplace like Angola that's
yeah.
virtually escape proof. I mean,
Right. And that was
people
that's the whole
people are
thing. I
waiting.
mean, they weren't in people so people understand they weren't in like a state prison. You're right. That makes a total different ball game as far as the escape.